let's go ahead and jump into how to use TD Ameritrade and how to set it up. I'll show you guys the way I have it set up, and the settings that I have. They don't have to be the same settings that you guys use, but it's just a guide for you guys to a place to start out at. So when you just open up TD Ameritrade, you're going to have a very blank screen. It's going to be something not even that. I think it's going to be, might be something like this when you just open up, or something completely different. You're not going to open up completely straight to the chart. So you're going to want to go up to this menu up here with all these tabs and hit on chart. And that should get you to the chart. Your chart is not going to look like this when you just start out. It's going to be blank. And then you're probably going to have just your basic candlesticks and then your volume at the bottom. So we're going to get your chart to look similar to this by the end of this session. So one of the first things I want to start out with before we get into setting up your chart and setting up TD Ameritrade is setting up your watch list. That's probably going to be one of the first things you want to do when you're going to start out on this platform, or any platform for that matter. Building out a watch list is probably one of the more important things that you should be starting out doing. If you don't have one yet, I highly suggest you start building one out, and I'll show you guys how to do that now. So on your left side, you're going to start out with really, it really just depends. You're probably going to have something that says default. And the way you can edit that default menu is if you click on default. So this one says main, but if you click on it and it says default, you can go down to edit main, or it's going to say edit default. Click on that, and then you can change that default name to whatever you're looking to change it to. So it could be, you can create multiple watch lists. So for instance, if you want to create a main watch list, you can name it main. If you're trying to create a watch list just for airlines, you can name it airlines. If you're trying to create a watch list for cruise ships, you can create a watch list for cruise ships. You can create a watch list for tech. You can create a watch list for agriculture. Really just whatever you guys want, you guys can create that watch list and name it, and add stocks to that watch list if they fit into that sector, or, you know, whatever that watch list criteria is. If it fits it, then you can add it to that. So the next thing that I'm going to show you guys is, once you've renamed your watch list, you can also go down to the bottom of the watch list. If you click on it and hit delete, it's going to delete the stocks that you clicked on to delete. But if you want to add a watch, or add a stock to the watch list, if you want to add AMD, for example, AMD, and then you type it in, you have to type in the ticker, not the name of the company, and hit enter, and it'll add that watch list, or add that stock to the watch list. Another way to, and then just hit save. After you're done, you know, deleting and adding stocks to this watch list, hit save, and then it'll add the stock to your watch list. Another way that you can add stocks to your watch list is going to be just by going to this section right here and going all the way to the bottom. And then you can have an empty little spot right here. If you click on this spot, you can also type in whatever stock you're wanting to add. Let's do WWE, for example. Hit enter, and it'll add that stock to your watch list. If you already have a stock that you're typing in, it won't create two of them. It's just gonna accept it, and then it's gonna, you know, it's gonna be just that one ticker that you put in. The next thing that I wanted to cover with you guys is, after you type in the ticker in the search bar up here, you can also add it that way as well. So if you type in CRSP, for example, and then go all the way to the right here, you're going to see a little menu with the 3 lines. You can go add CRSP to watch list, and then you can choose whatever watch list you're wanting to add it to. So those are some of the ways that you guys can add stocks to your watch list. I also want to cover, you know, kind of how to find stocks to add to your watch list, right? So the first way is a very simple way, is every company that you can think of, just add it to a main watch list. So create a watch list that says main, and then you can just start brainstorming of companies that you use, that you've seen around. maybe you've seen some advertising for certain companies, and start looking all these companies up and looking for their tickers. And then you can add and start building it that way. A second way is obviously with our weekly stock talks on YouTube. We do weekly stock talks and we present you guys with opportunities. And that's another way to build out your watch list. Another way to build out your watch list is literally just Google or YouTube. You can Google for, if you're looking for airline stocks that you don't have airline stocks, or you just don't know of any airline stocks, you could type in airline stocks and it'll give you a list of stocks. And then you can find whatever companies you guys want to use and then just add those tickers to your watch list. And same thing with YouTube. With YouTube, really just look around for content related to the stock market and people that are trading certain stocks. Be very careful when you're listening to people on YouTube. There's a lot of noise out there, but that's a great way to start accumulating stocks to add to your watch list, is just by maybe somebody mentioned something, boom, just add it to your watch list and you'll pretty much have it forever. And then you can always review it and go back to it whenever, you're doing your weekly prep, or if you're just looking for opportunities, you can just scroll through your watch list and really check on all these different stocks. So that's pretty much how you can add a bunch of stocks to your watch list. Really, it's really just a matter of taking the time to sit down and brainstorm and just put together a watch list. The good news is once you get it together, you're already building out a massive, massive list that you can find opportunities within. And then you can just continue to build on it over time as time goes on. And, as you trade more, you can always add more stocks to it. And that just expands your opportunity scope. So now that you have, your watch list, there is a setting option where you can customize your watch list, right? So let's go ahead and dive into that. That setting option to customize your watch list is going to be right up here. There is a gear icon. Click on that gear icon and hit customize. And what that's going to do is it's going to bring up your different columns that you guys can organize your watch lists by and customize your watch lists by. So you can sort it by last, percent change, net change, and many other options. And there's obviously a ton of options that you can choose from. Some of the ones that I find useful and valuable, I will list those off for you guys, and you guys can add those to, or add that to your customized watch list. And then if you have any other, whatever you want to be seeing, you can always add that as well if it's helpful for you. So the ones that I have obviously the symbol, because I want to know what I'm trading. I have the percent change. I have the last. I have the net change, the bid, ask, and the volume. So the way you want to, if you have none of these, the way you find them is click on the little search bar on the left and type in volume, for example. That's something that you're wanting to add to, your customization of your watch list. And then you find just volume. If you're looking for something specific, net change, type in net change, and it'll pop right up. And so that's how you find these. You can pause the video here. That way you guys can kind of see which ones you need to start out, and then add those to your watch list once you start out. So let's click on OK. So let's go over some of these customizations that I have. That way you guys can kind of have a better understanding of what each of them represents and what each of them really tells you. So the last price, which is this one right here. So that one is essentially, it means the current price that the stock is at, right? It's fairly simple, not very complicated to understand. Basically, the last current price that it's at. The next one's going to be percent change. So that's this one right here, percent change. And that's giving you the percentage that it's changing. So is basically the percentage that it's changed based on how it previously closed. So let's say yesterday it closed at $1. Today it's at $1.10. So the percent change would be, 10%. Or it drops by 10 cents. It would be a negative 10% change. So that's basically what that tells you. It doesn't necessarily have to correlate with how much the price has changed today as a whole, but it's more so how the price has changed percent-wise since the last close and today's open or today's current price. So the next one that we're going to talk about is going to be volume. And that's a very important one that I see value in, and I believe that you guys should have on your customized watch lists. I like to focus on volume the most. If you click on volume, it will reorganize it. So you can focus on stocks that have the most volume, so that, obviously stocks that have more volume are seeing the most volatility, and they have the most opportunity. So the way I organize it is I usually have the most volume at the top, and then the least volume at the bottom. But you guys can customize it the way you want it. So if you click on it, it'll go lowest to greatest. And then if you click on it again, it'll go greatest to lowest. So that's how that works. I suggest focusing on stocks that see the most volume, simply because, like I said, you want to make sure that you're investing in high quality stocks and that the demand is there. The more volume, the more demand, the most likely the better quality that stock is, or the more opportunity that stock is presenting within this day or the day that you're looking at it. Usually when a stock is trending, once again, they obviously see an increase in volume, which is normally a direct correlation with the percent change and the net change, which in turn usually results in being at the top of your watch list regardless if you sort it that way or not. However, if you sort it by volume, you're usually trading the stocks that are most in demand in this particular day or the day that you're looking at your watch list or your chart. If they see huge increases in price but not good volume, then they'll be closer to the middle of your watch list, which are usually lower cap stocks that, personally I'm not always too interested in. So it works out for me, and you must find what works for you, right? So if you're interested in trading stocks with mediocre volume, then obviously that's going to be, like I said, towards the middle of your watch list. But really, you have to find which type of stocks that you're interested in, and that really correlates with what type of trader you are. And we're going to touch a little bit more on that in a future session, and talk about how to identify what type of trader you are and how to really figure that out. However, the point of this is to tell you that you really have to figure out what works for you, and have your customization of your watch list based on the type of trader you are, based on your trading style and what's really helpful for you, right? Continuing on, let's discuss another feature I find very useful, which is how to link your watch list with your charts, right? So right up here, right next to the name of your watch list, you're going to see this little number with a color, and you can unlink or you can choose a specific color. So for instance, if you click unlink and you click on the stock, your chart does not display the stock. If you click on the next one, it also does not display the chart. However, if you have the color blue, number 3, color blue, or let's go with 4, green, and it's green, and then you go up right here, and then right next to the ticker where you type it in the search bar, you change that one to 4, green as well. Now, whenever you click on a specific stock on your watch list, the watch list that is linked with the green to green, it will be displaying right on your chart. If you go to a different watch list where it has, a blue, and you click on a stock from there, for instance, it's not going to display on your chart because your chart is not linked. Your chart is currently linked with the 4, green. And you can change that for each watch list. That way, all you have to do is just change, the color of your chart link, and then it will become instantly linked to that specific watch list. Another reason for doing that is it really helps you kind of streamline things, right? So for instance, now you don't have to really search for that specific stock or whatnot. All you have to do is just click on it and it'll pop right up. Another feature is when you click on a specific stock, or if you're doing your technical analysis or you're just searching for opportunities, you can click on, any stock. You usually start at the very top. Let's start with NKLA. And then all you do is just use your arrows and you're just clicking down. And as you click, it just changes the chart for you. That way, it's just that much more efficient for you to be searching for opportunities or looking for something specific that you're searching for in terms of technical analysis. So let's go ahead and jump into the settings option of your chart. So when we click on this little gearbox right here at the top of your chart, it's going to pop up with all of your settings. The first thing that we're going to have to do is we're going to make sure that show orders is checked. Show orders, and then on alerts. So this one has to be checked, alerts. You're going to want to have whatever setting you really prefer. But you can have show arrows only or show alerts, or don't show your alerts at all. So the difference between this is, for instance, if you click on show alerts or show arrows only, let's go ahead and with show alerts and hit apply. Okay. And let's say I create an alert right up here. Create alert at or above, create. So when I have show alerts chosen, it's going to display this line for me all the way across my chart. Now, if we go back to the settings and we change that to show arrows only, hit apply, okay. Instead of having that line right across your chart, all it's going to have is this little marker right here on the right side, and that's going to be your alert. And then if you go back to your settings and choose do not show, which I don't think you should be choosing this one if you're going to be using alerts, because it really defeats the purpose. But just for example purposes, I want to show you what this does. Hit apply, okay. It's going to get rid of your alert completely. So really it comes down to, do you want a line across your chart, or would you rather just have little arrows on the side of your chart? Hit apply, okay. So this is back to having your alert shown completely. So let's go back to the settings. So once again, like I said, it's a preference. I prefer to sometimes have my alert showing across the chart, or sometimes if I have a lot of alerts, I usually just have them on the side of the chart. That way it's less distracting, it's less crowding for your chart. So if you don't have the arrows set, you'll have a line, like I said. Some say it's too much going on. It really depends on your preference, right? Do you like a more clean chart, or do you like a busier chart, right? Show studies. If we're going to be going to studies, you're going to want to have show studies checked, and then show highlighted studies on hover. What that's going to do is if you hover over one of your indicators or one of your studies, it's really going to display what that study is. So once again, that also comes down to preference if you want that checked or not. I keep mine checked, so that's what I'm going to be sharing with you guys. So moving on to display right over here, we're going to have show highlighted bubbles checked. We're going to have show last price bubble checked as well. We're also going to have show symbol logo checked, and we're also going to have show trades checked. Show trades is going to be showing where you're having your trades. So you're going to be able to see where you placed your buy trades and where you placed your sell trades. So these aren't too important, but something I have. I want to make sure that I share that with you guys. That way you have, at least a starting point. And then you can play around with these settings and see what's more suitable for you and what you prefer and what you like. So going on to time zones, make sure that your time zone is set correctly. I'm currently in Pacific Standard Time. If you're in a different time zone, make sure to change that, or make sure that it's on the right time zone. That way you're displayed the proper charts at the proper times. So I also have overlap volume checked on the layout. Show price subgraph is checked, and then overlap volume is also checked. What overlap volume does is it puts your volume right here and your actual candles all into one chart. That way you have less little sections down here to worry about. It just cleans things up, and you should be paying attention to your volume as you're watching the price action, So having those two together really helps you out. And like I said, with some of the other things, we're going to get into these things a little bit more specifically volume. We're going to talk about that, how to use that, how to read it, and how you should be using it to benefit you as a trader. So once again, personally, I find it more helpful to have it right on my chart along with my price action. But it's going to come down to preference at the end of the day. But that's how I do it. I think it works the best. That's what's led to my success. So like I said, I'm just sharing that with you guys to give you guys a starting point. Moving down to price access. Here, what we're going to have is we're going to have fit studies checked right up here. We're also going to have fit study markers checked. And then we're also going to have enable left access checked. And that's down here, left access enabled check. Those are the only ones that I have checked on this tab. So let's go ahead and now move on to the time access. So on the time access, what we're really going to have is we're going to have an expansion area. And that's going to be one of the first things that you're going to want to adjust and change. I believe yours is going to be standard at 0. So I have mine at 100. You can change this to 200 or 300. It really doesn't matter as long as you have some room. The more room, the further out you can actually create your support resistance levels or your trends. So, you can have 100, you can have that at 200. It really doesn't matter. Hit apply. So what that's going to do, when you just opened up your TD Ameritrade platform, you have absolutely no room. Your graph pretty much cuts off right up here. So you don't have all this extra room displayed. It's all the way to the end. So your price just continues, and then it gets cut off right here at the end. When you create this expansion area, it gives you all this extra room. Like I said, you can use this to expand your support resistance levels. You can expand your trend lines, and it makes it that much more easier to analyze future price action or future potential price action, and really lets you draw out your trends to see if that price action follows the trend that it's currently in or not, or if it's holding certain support or resistance levels. So the next thing we're going to have checked is options. You're going to want that checked, and studies. You're also going to want that checked. Under display, you're going to want to have show rollover lines checked. You're going to want to have show expiration Friday checked. You're also going to want to have show year markers or year marking lines checked. Let's go ahead and go to favorite timeframes. This is going to be the next one that we're going to be adjusting. Whatever you pretty much have, it really comes down to what you find most useful. Once again, a lot of the settings, I strongly suggest you go back and play around with these settings. But more importantly, go back maybe after you've started trading, after maybe a month or 2 or 3. That way you have some experience and you really understand what's most useful for you and what's not. For now, just start out with the basics. And I think this is a great starting point for you guys. And this is what I use on a daily basis. So I think this is going to be very useful for you and a very great starting point. So whatever timeframes you have, you can get rid of those. And you're just going to want to start out with pretty much what I have right now. So the first one you're going to want to have is 1 day, 1 minute. The second one you're going to want to have is 1 day, 5 minute. The next one you're going to want to have is 2 days, 10 minutes. The next one you're going to want to have is 3 days, 20 minutes. The next one is going to be 5 days, 15 minutes, 10 days, 30 minutes, 20 days. We actually don't have that one, so I'm going to show you guys that one and how to add that one. The next one is going to be 180 days, 4 hours, 1 year, 1 day. And then I also have one that's 5 days, 1 hour. And then since I don't have 20 days, 1 hour on this specific chart, I have multiple charts, but not on this specific chart. So I'm going to actually add that and show you guys how to add specific timeframes. Because if you delete all of them to reset or to just not having any, just to input all of these, you're going to have to do this. So let's go ahead and show you how to do that. So click on add time frame. And then if it's a single day, you're going to want to do intraday. Or if it's daily, you can do intraday. And then you choose the amount of days here. So we're doing 20 days. And then we're doing 1 hour. And then down here, we're going to go to 1 hour. And that's 10 minutes, 1 hour. And so that's essentially pretty much how you do it. And then you just click on add, and boom, it adds it to your favorite time frames or time frequencies. So keep in mind, you can only have an allotted amount of these. So use them wisely and have the ones that you actually utilize and that are most useful for you. Don't just crowd your options with a whole bunch of random ones. These are a very great start, like I said. And so just remember that you are limited on how many you can have. So use them wisely. I'm going to, once again, you guys can pause the video here. That way you guys can copy down the same ones that I have and input them into your charts. That way you guys have a great starting point. So the next one we're going to go to is appearance. When we click on appearance, what we're going to have is under the ticks, it's going to be obviously border up, meaning the border of your candle. You can change that to whatever color you want. You can have purple. I usually just have it all the same color. That way it's not as distracting. So obviously green is for the ones going up. And then for the ones going down, it's going to be red. So borders up is green, borders down is red. The doji itself, meaning this little line that whips up and comes down, that's going to be white by itself. And then fill up is green, fill down is obviously red. And then showing wicks, the wicks are these little wicks that drop down. We'll go over what wicks are later on, but I suggest that you have them on. And that really helps with reading patterns or reversals. So cursor, gray, and then for volume bars, color as symbol ticks. If you change it to preset color, it's just going to be blue. I find that having the color as symbol ticks is most useful, mostly because once we discuss how to utilize volume, you're going to want to know which volume is stronger. If the red's stronger, meaning the bearish volume is stronger, or if the bullish volume is stronger. So I suggest having it the color of the ticks, and that's going to be helpful for you down the road. The background color, obviously you can have whatever color you want. You can have blue. You can have, this color. You can have white. You can have gray. It really comes down to preference. I just like black just because it's clean. And it makes it that much easier to read. Well, I actually have a dark gray, not a black. And then I have grid checked as well. If you get rid of grid really helps you kind of see certain price levels. If you're looking at the main chart, you can see, 94 has this little grid line. 96 has a grid line. If you get rid of that, you're not going to really have that. And it's going to be harder for you to identify, hey, I'm at 92 here, or hey, I'm at 89 here. So I have that checked. Once again, it comes down to preference. Equities, options, and futures, or Forex, all of these, I basically don't change anything on all of those. So you don't even have to worry about these or changing anything on those. The only exception is in options. If you click on options, in options, check highlight extended hours trading session. Make sure that's checked. And that's just right here. But other than that, that's pretty much it. And so what that does is it gives you these gray after hours or extended hours sessions that are pretty much after your market close. So those are essentially the settings options. Let's jump into hit apply, hit OK. And then you should have pretty much the proper setting options already set up. So let's go ahead and touch base back onto the frequency or the time frames that we just added. If you click on this little 30-minute next to this gearbox, it's going to display all those time frames that you just added. You can also edit that list if you just click on customize list right up here. And that's essentially going to let you customize the list from here without having to go to the settings and the longer way. So let's say you want to zoom in on this specific chart area. So you're viewing this massive chart area on this 30-minute chart, but you want to zoom in on this specific the last 2 days, for example. What you're going to want to do is you're just going to want to click on, wherever you want to start, right click or left click and drag. And then whatever is highlighted, that's what's going to zoom in on. And then boom, now you're just viewing the last 2 days. So if we're jumping into, 5-minute chart and you want to zoom in on, between 10 and 12, you can just click and zoom in between 10 and 12. And now you're seeing this specific, whatever specific time frame you want to be viewing it in. Even 5 minutes might be a little bit too big to be really zooming in that much into. But if you're trading on like a 1-minute time frame, then you might want to have something a little bit more, zoomed in. That way you can actually see every single minute what's happening on every minute. So what I often do is once you've identified the support and resistance, and that's what we're going to be covering in our next session. But once you have identified that, you can click on where you plan to buy, and when you drag up to where you want to sell it, it will tell you the percentage of growth that can be expected from that trade. So to give you an example of what I mean by that, let's say this dips down and you found support here. For instance, let's make that an example. There's a support level here, and you identify that support level, which we'll get into in the next session. But you're trying to find out if this thing dropped this much and from this level back to, let's say halfway up, how much percent growth is that? So if you're just using this little tool on the bottom next to the zoom in and zoom out button, if you just go onto this little line tool, trend line, click on that, and it'll give you this little pencil. If you click on this bottom entry point where you're expecting to buy and drag up to wherever you're planning on selling. So let's say at $90 is where you're planning on selling. Right here, I don't want to move the actual cursor because it's going to change. But with that little blue box that you see, you can see that there's a 2.6 profit potential. And that's really how you identify, what that profit potential is going to be. The same method can be used to calculate the risk and potential percentage for loss. So for example, if you're buying here and you're trying to calculate what would be the risk if, it goes down to 87, or if it goes 87.50, or if it goes down to $87. So if you're dragging it down, same method, and that risk would be 0.69%. So like I said, the tool that I'm using is in the drawing tool and trend line. So drawing, if you go next to this little zoom in and zoom out button, there's a little active tool. Click on that and it'll give you a little toolbar. You can't really move this toolbar, unfortunately. However, this is one way to access it. You have your trend line here. You have your price level, which is essentially another way of creating your support resistance levels. And you'll use this tool quite a bit after your next session when we discuss support and resistances. It's a very useful tool to use. You've got your text tool if you're trying to make notes at certain points. I don't really use this tool too often. I like to, write out whatever notes I need on paper. That way I can review. And you have a whole bunch of other tools that you can be using. You got channels here, you got ovals, rectangles, whatever you want. You got those tools here. Another way to access your drawing tools or your drawing features would be to go to this drawing little tab right up here next to style, and then drawing tools, and you can access it this way as well. So it normally starts you off with a pan tool that you aren't really able to do much with. So that pan tool is going to look something like this finger, and that's basically the pan tool. The trend line tool, what that allows you to do is it allows you to allows you to draw the percentage change. It allows you to exit out just by clicking out of it. So let's say you're drawing a percentage change and you want to exit out, but you don't want to draw this line. Just right click out of it and then click on the screen out here, and it'll disappear. But if you're trying to draw certain, support levels or resistance levels, lines and trends all together, if you click and click and if you double click and don't exit out, it will draw your trend lines. So it's a very useful tool for that. So for example, what I mean by that is if you click on here and if you double click, you can continue to draw these lines. Right click, exit out, you've got a trend right here. Let's draw, a more solid trend, for example. So a trend like this. Right click and it exits out. And then if you want to get rid of a specific trend line that you used, go back to this drawing tool, click on this arrow, and then click on whatever trend line you want to get rid of and just click delete, and it gets rid of it. So how do you draw perfectly straight, support lines, for example? Well, let's get into it. So let's go to a 4-hour chart, and we want to draw a, absolutely straight trend line. We'll go to the same drawing tool right up here, and then we'll go into price line or price level. Click and place that line, and it will draw a straight line across, making it that much easier for you to draw these trend lines. So that's going to come down to more so of, utilizing, support and resistance to do your technical analysis. And we'll go a little bit more in depth with this once we get into support and resistances. But let's say you're trying to draw a resistance right up here at the top at 99.24. All you're going to want to do is just go to this 99.24 level and double click, and it creates a line that extends all the way into your extended time or access that you just created by putting in that 180 or 200 number right back here. In the time access, we put expansion area 200. So once you have all of that set up, that is what settings I mostly use, although I mostly use trend lines altogether, or these price levels that I just showed you to create support and resistance levels. Those are the tools that I mostly use. Like I said, don't really use the text too often, or the squares or circles, or too many of these options. It really comes down to exploring them and finding, are they useful for you or not? And if not, then, you don't really need to be using those. So moving on to studies, let's go ahead and jump into studies. So edit studies right up here between this little gear and this little chart describer folder icon, there's a little edit studies button. Click on that. And what that's going to do is it's going to open up this little menu for you. So the studies that I'm currently using, it doesn't mean that those are the same studies that you necessarily have to use. However, I'm going to share the studies and the technicals that I'm using and the indicators. And then you guys can have a great starting point as far as the indicators go. And like I said before on some of these things, we're just setting up your TD Ameritrade on this session. And we'll go over these indicators and how to use them specifically on sessions later on. So the RSI indicator is going to be one of the first indicators that you're going to be adding. The way you're going to want to add indicators is just right up here on this little search bar. All you have to do is type in RSI, and you'll have RSI, and you'll have RSI pop up. You just double click and it gets added. So if we double click, it got added. We'll get rid of this one because we already have one. But that's pretty much how you're going to be adding all of these indicators. So the RSI, if the RSI is, let's go ahead and move this over so that I can show you guys. If the RSI is below 30, so you're going to have, it's going to look something like this right here. And make sure that it's on the lower, the lower bar, and that's going to display right up here. If it's located within the price, it's going to end up displaying on this main chart, and you don't want that. So you want this on one of the lower levels. And it's going to, like I said, it's going to look similar to this. So if the RSI is below 30, which is this line right here, and it usually turns blue, it means that it's more so on the oversold side, which usually indicates a good buy opportunity. Not always, because it can continue to sell off, but it's an indication of a good deal and a good buying opportunity. Like I said, it's not 100% all of the time. Therefore, you have to do, you don't want to 100% rely on just this one single indicator. So that's why we're going to be using multiple indicators. And then we're going to be going over how to use them in conjunction with each other. So usually when the RSI is over 70, so this top line 70 and you got 30, if it's above 70, it usually turns red. And that, when it goes into the red, it usually means that it's overbought and it will most likely come back down. It usually means that the demand will not be there anymore. But like I said, it's also not 100%, because sometimes when a stock is rallying, like crazy, or if it's just there's a lot of hype around the stock, then it can be in the red for some time and continue to, go up in price. However, in general, if it's in the red, it's usually overbought. So that is what the RSI allows you to do. It allows you to identify stocks that are overbought and oversold, and being able to identify a good buying point and a good selling point. So let's go ahead and jump into the next one. That's going to be the MACD. Similar to the RSI, all you have to do is just type in MACD, and you're going to have MACD pop up, double click, and it gets entered into your studies. The way I have it set up is I have the RSI at the top, and then I have the MACD right below it. So this is supposed to give you a better indicator of when to buy and when to sell with various features that it has to offer, which will be covered in a separate session in more depth. But we'll just leave it at that for now. Both of the RSI and the MACD will have separate focused explanations further along in the program. So don't worry about that. Just worry about putting it all together right now, and then we'll be going over that and how to use that in a later session. Level 2, let's go ahead and go over what level 2 is. So for now, let's go ahead and click apply and OK. Once you do that, it's going to add that to your charts. So now you should have 1 level, 2 levels, and then the third level should be your price and your volume all on the same level. Another thing I wanted to touch on is level 2. If you go on the right side, right over here, you have level 2. Click on that, and it will display something like this. Since the market's closed when this video is being made, you're not going to have too many of these showing, but when you open this during market hours, you're going to have quite a bit more in both of these columns here. So in essence, this is what allows you to see where people are buying and where people are selling. The way you have access to that is, like I said, on this right side. If you just click on it, it'll pop up. And if you click on it again, it'll disappear. There's also much more information on this right side of the chart here. You got your trade, which pops up with your quick buy and quick sell. I don't suggest using that unless you're, buying in specific orders, like 100 shares of each stock, whatever stock you want to buy. Otherwise, we'll be going over how to place certain buy orders and how to place certain sell orders. You got active trader, which is something like this. You got the big buttons, which, once again, it just quickly buys at market price. You obviously have your chart. You don't want to turn that off. You have your dashboard. You also have level 2, which we went over, and then you have live news. And this is where you're going to be getting instant news about a particular asset that you're looking at. And that usually pops up with the latest information about, or the latest articles, or the latest information about this specific stock that you're looking at. So make sure you guys are utilizing these tools. Make sure you guys get familiar with these tools. If you do not have access to level 2 for some reason, simply reach out to a ThinkorSwim rep. And the way you can do that is if you go up here to the support button, click on that, and you can create a support ticket. When market hours are open, there is an actual live support team, so you can just chat with them, like you would do in a messenger or a messenger box. You can also do that through mobile or obviously the desktop version, and it should provide you with a number to reach out to if you're struggling to contact them. And then you can ask them to subscribe you to real-time quotes and level 2 data. That's if you don't have access to level 2. You simply have to have an account, and it doesn't cost you anything to open an account with them. All you have to do is subscribe to real-time quotes, but make sure to reach out to them if you have any specific questions about that, or if you have any specific questions about the platform, or something out of the ordinary, maybe something that I haven't answered, and you don't really want to ask, you can ask them, or you can always reach out to me over the Discord server or on one of our one-on-one sessions, and we'll take care of you that way as well. So let's go back to the studies right up here. Once again, click on that. And search for studies that you're looking for. So again, all you have to do is just type in the name of the study, and it should pop right up with a series of options. Once you click on it, it will add it to your chart studies. You're able to move it around to wherever you want it to be placed in terms of different quartiles and where it will be set up. So as far as the quartiles, what I mean by that is all these lower levels right here. So the RSI is on your lower quartile, and then your MACD is on even a lower quartile. So let's go back to RSI and the MACD and go over some of the settings with this. So the settings, if you click on this little gearbox in the RSI little row, it'll pop up with another menu, and it'll allow you to change some of your settings. So the first thing we're going to change, or we're going to make sure that you have, is length is 14. Your overbought level is going to be 70, and then your oversold level is going to be 30. And then what I have is closed, Wilders, and no for show breakout signals. And like I said, all of these settings are more so a preference. Other than the overbought and oversold, as far as showing breakout signals, that can be something of a preference for you. And also the color that you would want for your RSI indicator. So oversold is blue in my case, and overbought is red in my case. You can change those to whatever colors you want to change, or just the general color of the actual line that travels on the RSI. So mine's just gray. The next one we're going to be looking at is the MACD indicator settings options. So that one we're going to have 12, 26, 9, exponential, and yes. And once again, if you just click on this little gear icon, you can change these settings here. So fast length 12, slow length 26, MACD length 9, and then color. Once again, that's a preference right here. Show breakout signals. That should be checked yes. What that's going to do is it's going to show you these little arrows on the breakout signals. So I have the MACD on the lowest quartile, like I said, which means it won't be overlapped on my actual chart, simply because it would look a lot more crowded and there would just be a lot going on the main chart if you just add all of these to your main chart. So I suggest, separating them to different levels, like, the RSI on this level, the MACD on this level, or you can switch them up or whatnot. So the next one we're going to be doing is the simple moving average. So this one here, once again, all you're going to have to do is just type it in, simple moving average, and it should be this middle one right here. Since I already have it added, we're just going to go over the settings for this one. So the settings for this one is going to be close, 180, 0, and no. So let's jump into the settings. Price close, length 180, display 0, and then show breakout signals, no. And then you can change the color of that. Mine is green for the SMA, and simple moving average is also known as the SMA. So you'll often hear me referring to the SMA, and that's what I'm talking about. So the next one is going to be the exponential moving average. So once again, just type it in, and all you really need to type in is expo, and it's going to be the second one. It's called moving average exponential, move AVG exponential. So that's the one that you're going to want to click on. Double click on it to add it. Both simple moving average and the moving average exponential should be in your price quartile. So that should both be, both of those indicators should be on your actual price chart. And that's going to be this green line and this blue line right here. So let's jump into the settings for it. Once again, go to the gear. And then the settings for this one is going to be price close, length -15. So I suggest starting out with 15, but you can play with this between 9 and 15. You don't want to go lower than 9. You don't want to go higher than 15, but anything between 9 and 15. The lower the number, the tighter it's going to be to the actual price. So the further away from, the bigger the number, so mine's 15, the more it gives the price room to, play out its volatility a little bit before it really confirms the direction that it's going into. Because if you're just going to be paying attention to the EMA and it's really tight on your price action, then you're constantly going to be buying and selling, buying and selling, buying and selling. And we don't want that. We want to make sure that we get actual confirmation on a buy order or on a sell order. So that's why I have 15, maybe go to 14, maybe 13. I wouldn't really go too much lower just because it gets really, really tight and it gets really complicated as far as, if you are paying attention and you're using the EMA as I teach, then it's going to be very difficult for you to actually execute on your trades. You're constantly going to get stopped out, or you're just going to keep buying and selling, and it's just really too tight, honestly. Breakout signals, no. And then the color is going to be, mine is just this baby blue color. So there, just like with the RSI and the MACD, there's going to be separate sessions discussing the EMA and the SMA lines. Aside from this, that is how you add those basically to your charts, and you should have those added to your charts. Don't worry about the volume profile for now. The volume profile is this thing right here. However, it's a little too early to be jumping into that. We'll do a separate session on the volume profile, and at that time, you can add that to your studies if you find it useful. However, for now, don't really worry about it. Just make sure you have the SMA, the EMA, the RSI, and the MACD, and that should get you started. And at the end of the day, it's really up to you as to what you would like to set up and what your setting options will be. It really just depends on what you find most useful. But when you're just starting out, if you're just starting to learn about this, those are the setting options I have. And I think that you guys should start out with these setting options as well. A lot of the program, we're going to be basing, what we're going to be teaching it on a lot of these studies. So make sure that you have them. That way you can understand what's going on and how to utilize them. So in essence, that's pretty much it as far as setting up the studies. Let's go ahead and hit apply and OK. So one thing I want to say is, take the time, whether you were watching this video and then you were just pausing and doing as you were watching this video, or if you're just watching through this right now, take maybe 15 to 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes. That's what it's going to take if you're just very fresh and new to this platform. But take that time and set up your ThinkorSwim platform the way you want it and what's most comfortable for you. Make sure to have the settings set up the way I showed you. If you're starting out, that way you have a great starting point. If you have any specific questions about the setup options, once again, feel free to reach out to me or to a ThinkorSwim rep if you're more comfortable with that. However, I can always assist you with any of the questions that you have. You can always bring your questions to any of our one-on-one private sessions. But all in all, the reps are, there from the brokerage, and, they're dedicated to helping you set up your platform in case you need the help. So they're always an option. I'm always an option. Obviously, our one-on-one sessions, you can drop your questions also into the Discord questions channel. That's another way to get some answers as well. So like I said, the way I have it set up is to really provide you with just a general understanding, but it doesn't have to be, or it doesn't have to mean that that's exactly the only options that you have for setting it up for yourself. It's just something that I like to do and my personal preferences. And it's the way I'm going to be teaching a lot of this program based on. So I suggest that you just have it. That way you can learn, and then you can always adapt. If you find things that you would like to use, you can always bring those up during our one-on-one sessions or in obviously the community, and we can discuss that there. So there, when we're going over the drawing tools, there's obviously the zoom in and zoom out buttons, just to make sure that you guys saw those. There's also a drawing tool at the bottom. We went over that. Don't forget about that. Next thing, we'll be discussing how to search and scan for stocks. So as far as the scan tool, let's go ahead and jump into it, and I'll show you guys kind of the basics of that. We'll go into a more in-depth session with this. However, I do want you to kind of familiarize yourself with it, finding out how to scan for stocks that you're looking for based on certain criterias, right? So there's an option for adding a filter for a stock. So let's go over to add filter right up here. You can click on this stock, and then it creates this stock little bar. And this is essentially a filter that you're going to be using. So you can filter through, you want to have an open or a PE ratio of, X, between this amount and, between 153, negative 153, or let's go to, negative 61 and 61 or 68. Or you can have any other option by just adding this filter. Another thing is, for example, last price. That can be another, or price change, or last price. That's a study. You can add a study just by doing the same thing, add filter and study, click study, and then you can add whatever study you want to be looking for. So let's say you're looking for a study based on, crossovers, or you're looking for a study based on statistical price correlation or standard deviation channels. You can add basically any criteria that you want. And once you hit scan, before we do, let me go ahead and show you the market cap. So once again, you can search for stocks between certain market caps. So let's say, $1 million to 2 million, or 200 million, or 300 million. Really, it just depends, whatever. And then the point is, you just hit scan, and it'll bring up whatever stocks you're scanning for based on your criteria. Let's go ahead and widen this criteria. That way we have a bigger selection. And let's get rid of this crossover study. Let's go ahead and scan now, and boom. And now you have a whole bunch of stocks that pop up based on, having a no market cap criteria, really, having a volume between, 1 million and, there's no cap, and the PE ratio between negative 61 and 68. So that's just an example of how to use, the scan tool. And like I said, this is just a general little, very, very limited general breakdown of how to use it. And I want you guys to play with it and get used to it. There's also a price change. You're looking for something that closed at least, 30% greater than, 10 bars ago, and 10 bars ago meaning, whatever your chart settings is at. If, each bar is 4 hours, then it'll be, 10 bars ago, 40 hours ago, or if each bar is an hour, it'll be, 10 hours ago, etc. Or if it's each bar is a day, then it's going to be 10 days ago. And you can change that to 11. You can change that to 12, 9, 8, whatever, 30%. You can make it 20%, 10%, 5%. It really just depends what criteria you guys are looking for, right? Like I said, once you're done setting up your criteria, done setting up all your filters, all you have to do is just click scan. We'll click scan since we changed it. Boom, you're going to have another list of stocks that you're looking for. So just to recap, in this session, we pretty much covered, your watch list, how to get that set up, the basics of that, how to set up your chart and your charting, how to get your studies set up, and how to, some of the basics of what they mean, your scanning, how to, generally see and scan for stocks that you're looking for, and setting up options that, that just overall help you, your flow, your workflow as a trader. So again, you do have access to support, which allows you to reach out to them for any questions about the settings and, and the platform itself. And then you also have access to me as well. And one more thing I wanted to show you guys in this session before we close out is obviously alerts. So we did set one up for an example, but let's go ahead and set one up just for you guys to see. So if you just right click on the chart at whatever level you're wanting to set this alert at. So let's say you want to set an alert above this EMA line. Now that you guys have gone over what an EMA line is, this EMA line, you want to setting up a alert above it. So we're going to right click right above it, create alert. And then make sure to check the price, 9107, and that's about where you want it, at or above 9107. And then you're going to click create. Boom, it creates a alert for you there. And now you also want to know if the price drops below the SMA, which is this green line, also a tick or an indicator that we went over. But you also want to know if it drops below that. So you're going to want to go below that at, let's say, 85, right click, create alert, 8506. Approximately. We don't want it at or above. We want it at or below because we want to know if it's coming down. We want to know that it's going to be coming down. At or below, you can change that to at or above, below, above, at or below as well. We're going to do at or below and then click create. Now you have an alert above the EMA and you have an alert below the SMA. So now if anything happens and you're, let's say you're on a different ticker, you're going to have this little thing pop up here telling you, hey, RCL is at 9107. And now you're going to know, okay, it broke up to the upside above this EMA and now it's heading to the upside. Or it's going to say something like RCL is below 85. So you're going to know that it dropped below this SMA line. Now it's heading down even more. So that's pretty much it, guys, for this session. If you guys have any questions, as always, make sure to reach out. Write them down, journal them down. And if you guys have the questions with you, make sure to ask them during the one-on-one sessions that we have every, 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever, however often we have our one-on-one sessions. If you guys would like, you guys can also drop your questions in the questions channel in the Discord server, or you can just drop them on the Discord anywhere in one of the appropriate channels, and the question is most likely going to be answered. So that's pretty much it, guys, for this session, and I'll see you guys on the next one.